One of the lasting effects of the Continental Army's campaign into Canada was an influence on military and frontier fashion that lasted for generations. Going by a number of names, blanket coat, blanket surtout, this Canadian and Native American garment fanned out from the Northern Department in 1776 to reach the entire Continental Army. The blanket coat was rooted in the colonial military experience of the 7 Years' War and the British occupation of French Canada that followed. French naval overcoats, or capote, became a normal part of French-Canadian dress by the 18th century. As a protective garment for mariners, capote, wrapped around the body, protected the head with a hood, and closed with a sailor's sash. French and Canadian tailors sewed these capotes out of heavyweight, warm woolen cloth. The capote became such a part of Canadian dress that they made their own summer capote with the same cut, but of lightweight woolens. Native American nations on the frontiers of both the French and British colonial spheres transcended their boundaries and adapted the form of the capote with their own taste, employing English and French blankets rather than cloth and trimming the capote with colorful wool tapes. The blanket coat appeared as a distinct garment. In the aftermath of the fall of Montreal and the British administration that followed, English merchants flooded the Canadian market with English blankets and wool trimmings. French-Canadian affinity for their native neighbors and former allies exceeded anything for their British conquerors, and the Native American version of the capote in turn influenced Canadian style. Blanket coats also appeared in civilian dress in the British colonies following the 7 Years' War. Runaway advertisements from the 1760s up to the Revolutionary War, from New England to Virginia, described a host of indentured servants, enslaved African Americans, and other people on the margins of British colonial America wearing blanket coats of different sorts. For instance, in 1764, a Negro man named Jacob, belonging to George Ray at Albany, ran away wearing a blanket coat with red stripes. During the 7 Years' War, British colonial rangers adopted the blanket coat for winter service through their proximity to Native American allies and enemies alike. In the British Army, each company within a regiment maintained 8 to 12 watch coats for the protection of their sentries on duty at night or cold weather. When American colonists raised provincial soldiers, they provided similar numbers of watch coats for their companies. The cold of winter service on the frontier pushed British and provincial soldiers to get their own individual blanket coats. Following the 7 Years' War, British regiments that rotated through garrisons in Canada adopted their attire for the winter months, with wool leggings, fur-trimmed caps, and blanket coats, the Canadian capote. In 1775, Connecticut and New York only provided their soldiers with an allotment of watch coats. They soldiered through long sieges at Saint-Jean and Chambly with this shared protective clothing. When the Northern Army captured Montreal and the regimental clothing of the 7th Fusiliers and 26th Regiment of Foot, General Richard Montgomery considered this a fair prize of captured supplies. On November 15th, he offered an entire suite of captured British clothing and a blanket coat to any soldier that would re-enlist for the next 5 months. As the Northern Army pressed further down the St. Lawrence and winter advanced, American soldiers bought or procured Canadian capote or sewed their own from their blankets. When the Northern Army retreated up Lake Champlain to Ticonderoga, they brought their blanket coats with them. Blanket coats were such a normal part of Northern Department dress that Horatio Gates wrote from Ticonderoga a September 23, 1776 estimate for winter clothing, including a blanket coat worth $4 Continental dollars as essential. After a long trip from Long Island, Captain Percival Fraser of the 4th Pennsylvania Battalion arrived at Ticonderoga on July 12, 1776. Among his frequent letters to his wife Mary, he described the army surrounding him and requested comforts and clothing from home. Writing to her on July 25, 1776, he noted, "You need not mind the cloth for a surtout, as I intend on having a blanket one made, as they are the warmest and most fashionable here." Though Percival and Mary were from Pennsylvania, they were familiar with blanket coats among Native Americans, African Americans, Canadians, and others. The fact that he said warmest and most fashionable here makes Percival's request to his wife more striking. Fraser had no love for men on the margins of colonial America. In the same July 25th letter, he complained of New Englanders, or Yankee soldiers, that their integration of African and Native Americans gave a nasty, lousy appearance, makes a most shocking spectacle. Yet, the experience of the Northern Army in Canada elevated the blanket coat from the margins of colonial dress into something fashionable, even for Percival Fraser. Following the successful defense of Ticonderoga in October, soldiers from the Northern Army rushed to save Washington's wavering army, or went home only to re-enlist for 3 years or the duration of the war in the new regiments of the Continental Army. Blanket coats went with them, crossing the Delaware, charging with Washington at Princeton, or shivering in winter cantonments to come. Even high-ranking officer, Major General Charles Lee, who never served with the Northern Army, was captured by British light dragoons in New Jersey wearing a blanket coat. They were now more than just a practical necessity. They were part of the fashion of American service and continued on for generations.